Nice.
What's up, brother?
So that was the smoothest transition we've had.
And we got a name.
That's right.
And we got a name for the third one.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. Yeah, so we are now called the Intake Output Podcast. So why don't you tell us, like, you're the one who came up with that name. What was your kind of idea behind that?
I know I was floating through a few things and they just kept running through my head. More on the idea of creativity, which I could personally get better with, but I thought, you're the intake guy.
Yeah.
We're talking about all that, what to put in, how to use it, how to utilize it. And I'm definitely more of the output guy, how to exert, how to reach new limits, how to push stressors and intensities. So I thought that just matched up perfectly and it just kind of clicked in my head. And I remember when I was putting it down, I was like, well, I'll suggest it to him, but I really hope he picks this one. I think this is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Cool. So this is episode 3 for us, which is awesome. I'm glad that we've been able to commit to doing one a month, which I think is awesome. So today we are going to be talking about sports supplements, and Gary is going to be talking about, what do you got today?
Full body workouts. And then I also talked about somewhat of a minimalistic approach, using only one tool, if that's the case for many people, going back into warm-ups, and just some tips and pointers along the way.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that'll be great. Yeah, I'm going to try and tie in a couple different areas. So I do have a couple questions for you in regards to some of that, like, minimalistic approach, and also kind of how that ties into, that philosophy on nutrition that we always talk about, which is basically, not every situation is going to be perfect, but how do you adapt it and make it work for you? So I think that's good. Do you want to start it off today?
Yeah, brother. I can start it off and we can ebb and flow with it. But the one thing that I wanted to go back to in talking about the idea of a full body workout is warm-ups and what to do, when to do it, how to do it, however you want to think about that. And that can literally be as simple as taking that walk around the block and doing a couple sets of 15 jumping jacks if you have nothing else available.
Yeah.
And that can be as strategic as pinpointing target areas, using certain tools, or trying to base your warm-up around your specific routine or what you have going on in that day. Ideally, you want to do it. We think about it. We talk about it. I've talked about it almost too much, and it's somewhat such a robotic protocol. One of the other things that I've been looking at is I've been jumping right into my workouts lately without doing a warm-up from time to time. And I know, Pete, as you and I age and we continue to get older and things start to hurt a little bit more, it was an interesting thought, but I just figured my body should be ready. If it's not, then I should adapt it in a particular way. I'm going to be safe about it, but instead of doing the 10-minute cardio and maybe doing my banded walks or my banded pull aparts, I'm just going to jump right into some hip thrusts or some squats or whatever, Paul Chek is actually an individual that put me onto that. I did his level 1 certification, and he's a 65-year-old man, and he talks about, hey, if I'm not ready by now, then I'm probably not going to be ready. So why don't I stimulate my body, get it to adapt to that given situation?
And how's that working for you? Because, like you said, like, with getting older, I definitely find the need to warm up, like, significantly now. I find it a lot harder. I guess it depends on what I'm doing. Like, if I'm going into a CrossFit workout where it's like a Metcon piece, then yeah, I can probably jump in and utilize, like, the first couple rounds as warm up. Coming from a swimming background, I do have a good idea about pacing and able to kind of hold like a pretty high intensity. So I'm one of the people where, again, having done distance swimming, I tend to get better as the workout goes on. And that's specifically true in the sense of something where I don't have time to get a good warm up. I normally use, and I think that's a good strategy because you're not always going to be able to, I'm not always able to get to the gym 15 minutes early and then do the kind of warm up that I want to do. And most of the classes have a warm up, but maybe it's not, as in depth as maybe it needs to be for, a particular athlete. So I think being smart about that too is like, I don't just come in guns blazing on round one. I make sure I kind of ease into it, kind of get my warm up in through the workout and then kind of push forward. But yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed that I need a more substantial warm up than I used to. So yeah, tell me more about like how that's been working for you, like the adaptability aspect.
It's an interesting component. I've noticed even with some of our EMOM experimentation and some of my basic strength work, it's pretty cool as long as you're smart on your first one or two sets. Now, if I say hip thrust, I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to jump in on a 300 or 400 pound thrust
Yeah.
and try to go at it. I'm probably doing 185, 225 to get a good feeling. I might do one or two sets of that, and then I'm able to just get going. And to be honest, in that portion, I really didn't feel much of a difference at all. I thought, all right, this is cool. I can get through this. The workout was good. What you mentioned about the Metcons and the CrossFit world is very cool because I personally would suck at those workouts if I didn't do a good warm-up.
Yeah.
I was not good, even if I know how CrossFit will even say if it's a longer AMRAP, 20 plus minutes, 25 minutes, you don't even need to warm up. I still thought I actually do because I just don't want to hit things like wall balls or thrusters or certain things cold because my body just feels very, very, very tight. So that's where I struggle. And given my time constraints, if I'm going to do my two conditioning days, no matter what, I will hop on the treadmill or I will hop on the rower. The rower will be anywhere from 5 to 1,500 meters because I know that's going to get me going. And the run, no matter what, after 5 minutes, I'm almost breaking a sweat if I want to.
Yeah.
And I'm the opposite of you, dude. I need to work on not going out like an absolute bat out of hell and then kind of puttering and realizing, oh shit, I just went way too fast for myself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think like that's a really nice tie-in to the nutrition aspect as well. And I think we've touched on a couple of different things. We touched on the fact that me and you are getting a little bit older, so there's that factor. There's also the factor that training isn't our full, we're not able to give our entire time to training anymore. So it's not like we're in college when we're able to train for multiple hours a day. So I think it really comes down to the point that you are in your life and your goals. And I think for a younger athlete or someone who's taking it very seriously, right? So someone who's pursuing collegiate, if not professional athletics, then there is something where they should always make sure that they're prepared, right? They should always be at the gym early to get that warm up in if they need it. They should always be thinking about the nutrition side of things where, they're making sure they get a simple carbohydrate in before their workout so they have the energy, or they're drinking some electrolytes during their workout, right? So it really depends on that kind of level that you can get to. Like, again, if you want to compete at that upper echelon, then you should kind of be making sure that you're prioritizing all of these other things. But we know, again, for the average athlete, these are stuff that you should think about and you can optimize when you have the time. But just be smart about it. There are smart ways that you can go about still hitting the workout that you want, even under time constraints, or if you haven't had the chance to get like a full meal in, right? If you haven't had a chance to like get a meal or a snack and like before your workout, you can still kind of push through that workout. Maybe you don't give it that 100% that day and you can kind of save it for the next day. Because I think that's a huge thing that I've been noticing as well is I can no longer take, like, I work out 5 to 6 days a week, but I have to be more selective about the days that I'm actually going to push the workout full throttle. And I do think part of that has to do with like, did I have the time to eat well that day? Did I have the energy, or did I have the time to like stretch and get a good warm up in? There's kind of all these different factors. But again, as I'm getting older, I can only push like max intensity maybe 2 out of the 5 days of the week and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I'm definitely with you on that, my friend. 100% with you. And I'm working better to get back to my roots of what I used to do as a strength coach. I still do it from time to time as a trainer, but basically undulating your program so you know I'm coming off of it. Last week I knew it's like, hey, I'm doing 6 or 8 reps, but I should feel like I can do 12. I'm thinking about my form. It's actually pretty easy. I'm not sweating that bad type deal. I think that's very, very important. That's a very, very smart way to do it, especially for you and I. The interesting thing that you brought up in the first start of your talk is talking about the athletes. I agree. And for us, I mean, when I was at New Paltz, I said, oh, okay, I got 2 hours, man. All right. So, my warm up was 10, 15 minutes, do a little roll, little banded work, whatever. Now you go in and I don't know what you get, but 35 or 40 minutes. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what can I do in 35 or 40 minutes? And a lot of times you're cutting the whole warm up out, or you're prioritizing it very exclusively,
Yeah, for
right?
the move you're going to be doing. Yeah.
But if you are a competing athlete, high school athlete, whatever, the same deal with nutrition that you spoke about. Think about when you're taking it in, structure it properly. But yes, you should have an appropriate warm up. You should have a plan and a strategy that takes you into your workout routine, whether you designed it or someone designed it for you. But I'll go on the flip side with this too, is the more that I look at it, and I have to do it more with myself, I'm going to start trying it with certain individuals. Maybe there should be a day where, hey, let's get right in there. Get right in there, get under the bar, get right in there and get on this machine, get right in there, whatever. How quickly can you turn on, not only mentally, but how quickly can your body just stimulate and say, whoa, okay, I have loads, I'm moving, what do I have to do? So there might be something
Yeah.
there.
I think that's really interesting, especially from a perspective of maybe someone you might not be a starter, right? You might be a bench player, and you've been on the bench for 30 minutes in soccer, and then someone gets hurt, or you get called in. I guess there is that aspect where you do need to be ready to attack a workout. So that is super interesting. I like that idea.
Yeah, it just kind of came to me again. It came to me from a Paul Chek course, Paul Chek himself. And I've been experimenting with it now. It's been about 3 weeks. Stuff has been fantastic, but we can talk about warm ups definitely forever. The other idea that I wanted to go into was the minimalistic approach. This is a topic. A lot of the people that I follow out there on Instagram talk about this a lot. And in talking about full body workouts, what can I do? What do I need to do it? You really actually only need your body weight. Worst case scenario, squats, push-ups, lunges, planks, Supermans. To me, I can call that a full body workout. If you want to add some jumps, burpees in, whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
you can do it with a dumbbell. I can do a goblet squat. I can do an overhead press. I can do an RDL. I can do a dumbbell row. I can do a tri extension. I can do a curl. Bam, my full body workout is done and I'm on to my next day. Or if you have not an ideal situation going on, if you're stuck at home, someone's sick, something happened with work, hey, I got 20 minutes, I have this bell and this mat. All right, if I write that up or I think of that, hey, I'm good to go. I think we're guilty of it. I think beginners, and as there's more and more information out there about all this stuff, you overanalyze the idea of, oh, I'm doing a full body workout. Man, what does that entail? Where's the advanced movements? Where's my bands, my bars, this, that? And all that stuff is fantastic, and you're going to need it for sure. But understand that you can literally do it with this. You can literally do it with one kettlebell and one dumbbell. Will it be ideal? Will it be I don't want to use the word fun, but will it be like advanced? Maybe those are maybes or maybe not, but at least it gets you through the workout and it gets you on to your next day.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely want to touch on that real quick. And from the things that I've read, I agree 100%. I think doing a full body workout can save you a significant amount of time, right? If you're able to do a full body workout 3 days a week, that's a great way where maybe those workouts are maybe a little bit longer, but that's a great way to kind of maximize the amount of work you can get in the smallest time frame possible. And exactly like what you said, I think like that's where EMOM, like the EMOM style training that we talk about sometimes can be such a kind of fantastic role. However, like I want to understand your um, ideas on whether that's the most beneficial route for like maybe it's good for athletes, but it's probably not the most beneficial route for like hypertrophy, maybe for like a bodybuilding kind of perspective. What do you think about that?
Cool, man. Thank you for taking me into that route. Yes, this is leaning toward the parent, the everyday work person, the person that has a lot of shit, so to speak, that may go on in their life and won't be faced with ideal situations. But yes, if you're talking athletics, and that's where I built it. When I was there, the majority of the teams would come in 3 days a week. So I sat back from what I knew at the moment and I thought, all right, how can I maximize their 3 day a week schedule? And that
Yeah.
was without a doubt, that was a full body routine. And that would consist of an Olympic or power movement, requires the most skill. It would consist of your bilateral, your dominant lower body movement, squats, deadlifts, two easy examples. It may consist of a unilateral movement, and then it went to your prime presser, your bench presses, your military presses, your heavy pulls, and then it went to auxiliary pressers or pullers, whatever it may have been. And I didn't split it up. I didn't split up push, pull, both, because then you're losing out. I actually combined them all together because, like you said, that way you had days in between. So ideally, they would recover. Is it perfect? No. But I was able to hit every single muscle group that I wanted throughout that given week. And when you talk hypertrophy, it just went back to the undulation. Or it went back to the time frame in the school year. This is strictly if you're talking high school, college athletics. If they were coming off right off a season and getting into their off-season work, that's when really endurance and hypertrophy was at its max. So you're talking rep ranges minus the power movements, if there were any, of 10 to 15 tops. I really would never go over 15 with them. And then it progresses as you get throughout the year. From hypertrophy, it drifts into strength. From strength, it drifts into strength power. Then you get into peak power. A lot of times you had to play with that because I may have had a summer to deal with. And then you try to line it up to where, I don't like using the term, but if you want to call it sport specific, that was as close as my routines would get to their given sport or what they may have needed for their given sport. And I use that, man. I use that template. We used it when I was a grad assistant. I used it for 5 years at New Paltz, where when I came out of that, the trickiness to it, and as I got into personal training, and I still catch myself doing this, I still am doing this, is when you start to get into 4, 5, 6 day routines, that's where you got to be careful. That's where, even with a 4 day, you're going to have, in my opinion, you're going to have a very advanced individual. You're going to have an individual with a hell of a foundation to just straight up full body 4 days a week. And that is going to be above the simple programming model. You're going to have to think about that, about what you're placing
Yes.
in each day.
Specifics
Yeah.
of the programming. Sure.
Yeah. Because you can really do a lot of overlap there. Might not be bad, might not be, but don't know. When you get into 5 and 6 dayers, same thing. Because now you're adding volume to the week for the individual. I've had one individual ever, and the dude was just resilient. He was a lunatic. He's a businessman. He was a businessman, but he was a lunatic. I was able to do 6 days of full body workouts, if you would call it that. But again, they had to be regimented and planned out and mapped out very, very well for him. I
That's awesome.
believe it in Pete. I know you probably do too. Something that I may not ever venture from again. I'm not really into the old bodybuilding stuff. Sometimes every now and then it feels good to do those kind of routines, but I don't like hitting just one muscle and then I don't see that muscle again for another week.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever personally go back to the classic bodybuilding split, right? Like chest and back and then shoulders, then legs. I think in this day and age, I think that's kind of an outdated training approach. Unless if your goal is specifically hypertrophy, if your goal is bodybuilding, then I think it's doable. Probably hitting muscles. It seems like the research suggesting hitting muscles at least 2 times a week for a certain amount of sets and reps and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever get back to that. I just want to pull you back real quick. And the last question I want to prompt you on is in regards to mindset, right? And when you're an athlete, and I'm sure you've had this, right? Especially younger athletes, right? So we're talking about like high school, college. After college, you're probably smart enough and more intelligent with your training. But how do you deal with an athlete who is, pursuing a certain kind of sport, but they absolutely love the gym? And say they come into the gym and 2 times a week they're trying to hit, like they're big into competing. 2 times a week they're trying to max out their deadlift when their sport really doesn't require they're not a linebacker. They don't need like a 500-pound deadlift. How do you deal with an athlete who really wants to kind of push themselves in the gym, but also letting them know that that might not be helping? That might maybe hinder their sports performance rather than despite the fact that they really want to like bump up the weight. Does that question make sense?
Yes, 100%. I've had a lot of experience with it. I think one of the best topics is just a relation of just getting down to their level. I've talked about this before, but meeting them where they're at and having a conversation from there. So relation first, no matter what. It's not the idea of just saying, hey, I'm the coach, I know this, and this is what we're going to do. This is why you're doing it wrong. It may put them, given the personality, it may put them on the defense. It may put them back. Number 2 is the education of it. Maxing out on deadlifts, awesome. You got that kind of mindset. You have that kind of push. All right, let's figure out a time when you can max out your deadlifts, right? Because also me being me and me knowing my mindset and what has helped me and what I have watched help individuals and teams. If you got that kind of mindset, I don't necessarily want to pull all of that back. I want some of that to shine. So if you're a dude or woman and you're in that gym and you want to get some deadlifts in, all right, props to you. I'm going to start being a fan of you, but let's figure out the right time to do it. And maybe it's not deadlifts, right? Like you said, everybody's not.
That as an example, but yeah.
Everybody's not the linebacker or the lineman of a football team. So maybe it's not that particular movement, but the education of how, when, where, why will play major, major, major factors. And it actually has played major factors for me before. It also has not. There were some that I can never really get to listen, and that just is what it is. I think that's going to happen all across the board. But big thing, me being me and my brand and things that I'm trying to promote in a healthy way, if your bandwidth is like that and you need that because you're an adrenaline junkie, you're type A, you thrive off that, we're also not going to find ways to hinder it and just completely keep you in a bubble or try to keep you safe. We're going to let you roar a little bit, if you will.
Yeah, I like that because that's a really interesting like approach and something I've dealt with myself, but also with athletes in the past is just making sure like if your training in the gym is, I know maybe you don't like the word sport specific, but if you are training to get better at a sport, right, then you do want to make sure that your training is purposeful, right? You don't want to, and I think that's like an issue in the same way nutrition is, but that's an issue in the sense of, if coaches don't have time to do like custom plans, like I'm going to flat out say it, like I don't think are, and again, I went to school prior to you being the strength and conditioning coach, but I don't think me doing the workout plan that I did in college probably helped me that much in the pool, right? Like, I don't know how much bench press helped me swim the 60-50 or swim the 500. So again, just making sure that your workout should be purposeful in the gym, if like for whatever goals that you have, but especially, again, I think a lot of the stuff that we talk about, it is athlete specific, or that's what I enjoy talking about. And most of my clients are athletes in some capacity. So I find that information really, really valuable. But yeah, like finding a way, I really love what you said about finding a way to relate to the athlete and saying like, hey, maybe in season is not going to be the best time to max out, but I'd love to see what you hit out of season or something like that. Or, find a way to still inspire the athlete, and like, come to terms with what they're trying to push, but also keep it to a level where it's not going to hinder their performance.
It's an interesting story, dude. And then there's two other points that I want to hit on quick, and then I'm excited to hear about your end of this. But
Perfect.
at you had left New Paltz, and the New Paltz men's volleyball team in my tenure was actually very, very good. And there was two particular years. It was 2016. They were studs. I mean, they won a national championship that year. I remember 2 days before they left, we maxed out in the weight room. Guys hit PRs in the weight room. It was one of the best. It was one of my top experiences as a coach, probably ever.
Yeah.
Because a lot of other people would have said, "What are you doing? This is insane." I don't know if you remember their coach. He barely spoke a lick of English. He was like, "Go, jump higher." That's what he wanted. He did not care.
Yeah.
And they were dialed, man. The program was dialed. The plan was all laid out. So I just went for it. I thought, all right, let's do this. And these are men. They were hitting PRs. They can feel bulge intensity, like the energy of that room. And I'm a corny believer. I think that carried through for that weekend, or that at least kicked that weekend off. And we did the exact same. It was even more special in year two, even though they didn't win it. They lost most of these guys. Everybody counted them out, even for a conference championship. And then they ended up back there, and they battled for it, but they lost. We did the same exact thing. So when it's planned out right and you're careful, you can really get some strategic work done. But what you can also build is one hell of a mindset. If you're exposed to harder things, simplicity says you should become harder, or you're going to get out. You're not going to last. So that was some of my philosophy.
That's super awesome. Thank you.
And the last couple of things that I wanted to touch on, back to in regards of full body workouts, and if you're going to do them, you're going to try them. Think about the 3-day routine. If you're a beginner, or if you're a parent, for example, that's a really good routine. It keeps you safe. You have days in between. You can literally do the same workout and get through it for that entire week. And progress over perfection, right? That's another one that you want to think about, is how well is it going, rather than every single movement or rep being just absolutely perfect every single time. And then last but not least, making it hard. We talked in the beginning about a simple body weight routine. You can add pauses to it, change angles, change ranges, change the tempo, and you can take that simple routine and make it very, very hard on yourself. And you don't even need a tool to do that. You can just change certain positions and certain speeds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the progressive overload aspect is incredibly important. It's the fundamental to growth in any area of life, but specifically like athletics, the weight room and stuff like that. And exactly, I think learning how to overload in different ways. So like whether that's performing the same amount of work in a faster window of time, performing more work in the same window of time, adding weight to the work that you're doing. And, there's so many different ways to progress from week to week. It's just incredibly important to make sure you are progressing and finding the way that works for you, but make sure in some way you're progressing week to week. And I think a lot of that has to do with some accountability as far as like tracking your workouts. I mean, this is probably the area in my life where the years after college, like I would still work out, right? I mean, it's pretty ingrained in me at this point to work out consistently, but I would find myself going to the gym and I would bench 185, but I would do that every week, right? I would never I would go years just doing the same shit in the gym every single day. And that's part of what I like about, what you said, maybe like the more full body workouts or the functional fitness classes that you can go to where it kind of, number one, you have people to work out beside. So that kind of instills a little bit of that competition. But also you're just more rigorous about like tracking your progress from week to week. And I think that helps like tremendously.
Absolutely, man. I agree.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm going to bring it back to kind of what you talked about, kind of the same thing, like when we talk about a full body workout. And you said sometimes you kind of get distracted with the barbells and the kettlebells and the different machines and the bands, right? There's so many different distractions out there. And what I want to talk about today is sports supplements and how that is, I think, a really big distraction for a lot of people. Not just athletes, but I think most people in general, like they will not go to the gym unless they have a pre-workout, and they won't, they're not happy unless they have like a protein shake directly after their workout. But what I try and instill in a lot of the athletes that I work with, and what I think is like my message that I bring from, my nutrition company as a whole, is just the fact that there's so many other factors that kind of go below, supplements. And if you are not prioritizing that stuff first, then the supplements are essentially not going to make any difference. And even if you are prioritizing anything else or everything else, right, they're only making like a 1% to 2% difference. So I want to kind of restructure the way that people think about sports supplements as a whole and what's really important. So what I developed was something called the endurance athlete pyramid. So a lot of it has to do with fueling the body effectively and what the base should be. So on the base of my pyramid, I have your total caloric intake throughout the day, right? So I think that is the number one component to your energy level. And this is a really simple concept, but it's something that people kind of mess up, I think, a lot. I think a lot of people undereat, especially like for athletics, and it's something that's really the reason what got me into my passion with nutrition in general. Is when I was swimming in college, I was eating like a bodybuilder, not a swimmer. I wasn't getting, I think I've said this story before, but I wasn't getting the amount of food that I needed. I wasn't getting the nutrition with the carbohydrates that I needed for energy. So I really like to emphasize it's basically energy balance, right? It's the amount of energy that you're taking in each day, because the more energy you're taking in, the more energy you have to pursue your workout, your training, all that kind of stuff. And that's what really leads to the exponential gains. And it's kind of the same thing with investing, right? You want to see that compounding interest, right? If you're investing, is the same thing when you're talking about your energy balance. If you're able to have that energy to push each and every workout, so every time, for me, if every time I came to the pool, I was able to push that workout and get 1% better over the course of the year, right? I'm seeing that tremendous outcome by the time I get to championships. However, if I'm not fueling my body effectively, if I'm not able to push each and every workout to the maximum, then I feel like I just left. That was kind of the way I left college. I feel like I left a lot of what I had on the table, right? And I didn't know at the time, but I just think I wasn't fueling myself effectively. So at the base of my pyramid is energy balance and hydration.
Pete,
Yeah.
maybe you might talk about it, and that's fine, but also talking about the timing of that energy and when to input that energy. I don't know if you're going to get to it or keep going, but that was one question that I wanted to bring up too. I think would be very valuable.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's incredibly valuable. I think it's incredibly important, but we'll get to that.
Cool.
So the first one is energy balance and hydration. The next one is going to be like your macronutrients, right? So people are familiar with macronutrients. So that's going to be your protein, your carbs, and your fats. And the reason I bring that up is for exactly what I just stated, in the fact that when I was swimming, doing a very heavy endurance sport, I was prioritizing, and again, I ate healthy, right? I ate conventionally healthy, but I was prioritizing protein, lean protein, and like fruits, vegetables, and I was not getting enough carbohydrates in. So it's really important that you should assess the types of training that you're doing, the type of workout that you're doing, and then kind of adjust your carbohydrates accordingly, right? So I would say like an endurance-based sport where swimming, cycling, track and field, stuff like that, you're going to need 400, 500, 600 grams of carbohydrates a day, because you are training 4 or 5 hours, right? That's a lot different from a sport like baseball where it's more, I'll say more skill-based, right? It's a more skill-based sport trying to hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball rather than the amount of kind of work that you can do it at one time. So again, macronutrients is the next base on my pyramid, making sure you're fueling your body for the training that you're doing. Then it's going to come down to micronutrients. So pretty simple. I like to think about micronutrients just as your vitamins and minerals, right? It's going to be what's coming from like your fruits and your vegetables. So I keep that real simple. Most of the people that I work with, I tell them try and eat 2 different fruits, 2 different vegetables every day, and you're probably pretty covered there. You can, and we'll get to supplements at the top, but you can supplement with like a multivitamin, but I really don't think, number one, it's not as bioavailable in most situations. But if you're eating a fairly healthy diet, you likely don't need one. So next thing on the pyramid is going to be sleep and recovery. So I think this one is probably, again, another one that's extremely overlooked, especially at the high school and college level. And this comes down to a couple different things. Number one, you only have so much time in college to kind of pursue the different demands that you have on you, right? As an athlete, you're pursuing your athletics, you're pursuing your academics. So you might have homework late one night. You also are pursuing like a social aspect too, whether drinking's involved there and staying out late and stuff like that. I mean, ideally you're trying to minimize that stuff, but sleep and recovery are just so incredibly important to, like we talked about before, getting that kind of compounding effect. And I think this is another area that I could have been so much better at in college because I'd work so hard during the week, and I probably would lose a lot of that benefit over the weekend when I would be staying up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was only getting a couple hours of sleep, and I wasn't allowing my body to recover properly. So again, this really comes down to, and what I always talk about, this really comes down to what you're trying to achieve, right? If your goal is to make a college team or your goal is to make your high school team, but that's the extent of it, right? Then you probably can pursue, some of these other things and have it not really be that big of a deal. But again, if you're trying to pursue these athletics at the highest level, then there are these sacrifices that you need to make if you do want to, be the best you can be. And I kind of just wish someone had told me that, right? So that, again, this is like why we're doing this podcast and why I think this is important. Maybe if someone kind of phrased some of this stuff to me when I was like in college and explaining how much of a benefit that this would have, then I would have kind of taken my nutrition, taken my sleep, stuff like that a little bit more seriously. So again, depends on how serious you want to take this stuff. But again, sleep and recovery, incredibly important. The next thing is what you brought up. So the next thing on the pyramid is going to be nutrient timing. So overall, like I said, being the base of my period, I think the amount of calories that you're taking each day is the most important thing. But if you cannot optimize that, when you take in your calories is incredibly important, right? So if I know that, and this is another area I lacked in. So again, this is my life. I'm trying to relate to it. But, and I think Mark Battisti, I think he was in the chat. He might still be here. If he's not, he was someone who would always wake up in the morning and eat something before swim practice in the morning. And guess what? That kid would kick my butt in practice every single day. And I would always wake up late, I wouldn't eat, and I would notice by the end of my 2-hour practice, I would definitely be dragging, right? And that all had to do with nutrient timing, right? If my last meal was dinner the night before at 8 p.m. and I'm swimming at 6 o'clock in the morning, I've gone 10, 12 hours without eating anything and I'm going to expect my body to perform. No, that's not going to happen, right? In the same way that I think a lot of people, right, if you have a 9 to 5 job, you're probably working out maybe 5 or 6 p.m. If you ate lunch at noon and then you're going to go hit the workout, you're going to go hit a workout at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. at night. Do you think you're honestly going to have the energy you need to hit that workout as hard as you can? And the answer is no, right? So you should think about some kind of snack that you can have. And maybe this is a topic that we'll get into, because I could talk on this forever. There's a topic maybe we'll hit for our next session is what foods, like what's the best food to eat 2 to 4 hours before a workout, or if you don't have that luxury, what are the best foods to eat maybe like a half hour to an hour before, right? Maybe you're going to favor some higher glycemic index carbohydrates that are going to digest more readily so you have quicker energy rather than maybe the complex carbs you could eat 2 or 3 hours before. So that would be a good thing maybe we can follow up on. But again, finally, all the way at the top of the list is supplements, right? And there's so many different supplements available. And like I said, I think people put too much of an emphasis on them, right? They're so concerned about all the different supplements that they should be taking, but they're not maximizing any of the other things, right? They're only getting 5 hours of sleep a night. They're not tracking their food. Not that you need to track food, but they're not worrying about the types of food that they're eating, and they're not worried about how much food they're eating. They're not worried about hydration and all this other stuff. So what I try and really emphasize is before you take the route of sports supplements, and this is twofold, right? This saves you a ton of money, I think, as well. But this also enhances what those supplements can theoretically do. If you're maximizing what the calories that you're taking in, and your sleep and your recovery and your fruits and vegetables to get your micronutrients, those are the main things you should prioritize. And then if you want to push that next level, that's where sports supplements can come in. So quickly, I'll just talk about the supplements that I think are the most effective, and we'll just run down 3. So if you are going to take sports supplements, I think the best ones that you can take are going to be creatine, protein, and then some form of electrolytes, right? I think in a lot of cases, a pre-workout powder might be great for someone who's doing bodybuilding, who wants to hit the gym. But I don't recommend it for anyone in high school because they're under 18. Like caffeine kind of plays with you a little bit differently at that age. You also should naturally have enough energy to not need a pre-workout before your gym session. I think it's kind of a crutch that a lot of people rely on. So yeah, starting with protein powder. I think the benefit of protein powder is just the convenience of it, right? I think if you're an athlete who's trying to get in 200 grams of protein, right? You're a bigger guy, you're trying to get 200 grams of protein a day. It might be hard to get that amount of protein through dietary intake alone, right? It might be pretty hard to get that through, your meat, your dairy, eggs, stuff like that. So yes, I think a protein powder can be a really effective tool at that point, but just make sure you realize that when you're consuming whole food sources of protein, there's a lot of other benefits, right? You're getting vitamins and minerals that you're not getting from a protein powder. So just make sure when you are using a protein powder, it's not your main source of protein throughout the day. The next one is going to be creatine.
Also,
yeah.
going back to that one, when would you say, maybe it's the same, but it was always, I remember your little shaker bottle. I did my workout. I'm going to slug my protein for reasons I didn't even know. I just probably watched other people doing it. Is there a timing thing on that, or? I mean,
again, this is like one of those like optimization things. No, I think the most important thing is getting an adequate amount of protein each day more than the exact timing of the protein. Again, if you have like serious bodybuilding aspirations, it really always comes down to goals, right? If you have serious bodybuilding aspirations, then yes, you should be maximizing muscle protein synthesis as much as possible during the day. For most people, it does not matter. Like if you do not get your protein shake within 15 minutes after the gym, no big deal, right? I think it's a great tool for people who say you go work out and then after you have to go pick up your kids at soccer practice, they have another game or something like that, right? If you have like a 3 or 4 hour window before you're going to get your next meal, I think a protein powder can be a fantastic way, like as just a nice like substitute prior to getting like a full meal. I actually use a protein powder now, like in the morning. Like as soon as I wake up, I make like a shake. So it's normally like protein powder, spinach, oatmeal, and then some form of like fruit. And that's like what I do for a quick and easy breakfast in the morning. So I don't think it matters tremendously when you do it. I think, as long as it helps you, as long as you're using it to help you hit your total daily protein intake, then that's the extent of it, right? I don't think it matters too much exactly when you take it. And there's, I've read a lot of stuff too. A lot of people take like a protein shake right before bed or like a casein shake or something like that. And while that might have some potential benefit in the sense of, increases muscle protein synthesis while you're sleeping or that kind of stuff, when you're taking something in your body right before you go to bed, that might impact your ability to fall asleep or hit that good quality REM sleep. So again, you never want something that you're doing like to benefit you that also is going to detract from a different area of your life, right? So if we're saying that sleep is more important, then I would try and have that protein shake like 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed, or just avoid it and then just, get that protein in the morning. So, I think people stress about it too much. It's not something that you need to stress about. Just use it as an effective tool to get some more protein in your diet. Does that answer that?
That was
Cool.
perfect, brother. I love it.
This one's going to be creatine, and I think this is one that used to be controversial kind of when we were younger, right? Maybe growing up. I don't know if your mom used to tell you not to take creatine, right? There was a lot of worry that because it does sometimes make people like carry a little bit more water weight. There was concern that it was going to be like you would have kidney problems. It would be too much stress on your kidneys, stuff like that. Creatine at this point is probably the most well-studied sports supplement on the market. I wouldn't go crazy with this. I would just buy the base creatine monohydrate version. Part of what I do for a living is I rank supplements, and there's so many different companies that have creatine monohydrate powder, and just because their brand sells it, they charge $50 for it, right? Where you can buy like a really cheap version off of Amazon, or just buy like a no brand version really cheap and get a great quality product. So creatine is great for increasing muscular strength, endurance, size, all that kind of stuff. So, pretty much between 3 to 5 grams a day, depending on your body weight, and you're good to go. It's something that I take every day. You might, like I said before, you might have during your initial phase, like the first 2 weeks of taking creatine, you might put on a little bit of water weight, but normally that subsides, within 1 to 2 weeks. So it's not something I would really worry about. If it is a concern, you can always, talk to your doctor about it. But again, I would put that up there as one of the top quality products. And then the last one is specific.
Before you go on the creatine, any parameters in regards to, remember the loading phase, you got to take 3 scoops, or when should we take it?
I'll talk about that. So like I said, I would favor creatine monohydrate just because it's the most studied over like creatine HCl or micronized creatine. Like those just haven't been as well studied. They're also usually more expensive, and just haven't really been proven to be that much of a difference. As far as the loading phase, 100%, that's something that you can do. So normally during a loading phase is like the first 7 days of taking creatine. And basically the whole point of that is just saturate the muscles with creatine, because that's where the creatine is stored. But in my case, like it's something that I planned on taking. So like I only started probably 2 years ago taking creatine full time, but I knew I was going to take it religiously from that point on. So I never really bothered with the loading phase. I just was like, okay, it'll load like on its own eventually. Again, it's maximization, right? If you want to maximize the effect like happening immediately, then yeah, you're going to look at taking 15 to 20 grams over the course of the first 7 days. But like I said, I was going to be taking it religiously anyway, so I just stuck to 5 grams a day and didn't really push it past that. Like, I don't see the point really in the loading phase unless like, again, I don't know why you need it to like hit that quickly or start working that quickly. So yeah, total personal preference there. I really don't like with any of the supplements that I take, like not like abusing it necessarily, but I don't like really going over like the recommended daily. Yes, it's probably safe to hit the 15 to 20 grams, but I think that's why people see those issues with that bloating that comes on and that significant amount of water weight in the beginning. I would just stick to the consistent 5 grams and kind of go from there.
Thank you, man.
Good.
Cool.
And then the last one that I think is actually truly beneficial, and it's something that I'm personally doing more research on myself, is understanding the importance of electrolytes and hydration as a whole, right? So when we are doing sports that we are sweating a lot, it's not just water that we're sweating out, right? We're also sweating out mineral electrolytes like sodium, calcium, potassium, magnesium, chloride. So those are extremely important in the body. Like our whole body essentially runs off of what's called the sodium potassium pump. It's how our bodies kind of regulate the fluid balance of our cells, our organs, all that kind of stuff. So when you are doing an intense physical activity where you are sweating a lot, or you live in a very hot and humid environment, right, that's like prone to more people sweating, you do want to make sure that you are taking in some form of electrolytes to maintain your hydration levels, right? And this can be done prior to your workout as well as during your workout. And, you know, that's why Gatorade was invented, was to help like supplement with electrolytes. I think the issue with Gatorade for a lot of people is the amount of sugar that can be in there as well, which, like I said, isn't always a bad thing. If you're someone who's training multiple times a day, then the added sugar in a Gatorade can be extremely effective. If you're training once a day, then you likely don't need a sports drink, but getting some form of electrolytes can be really important. And, you know, I've read a bunch of studies where if you're even slightly dehydrated, your performance can decrease by about 20 to 30%, which is like a nut statistic. And it doesn't take much to be not like a little bit dehydrated, right? Like you wake up every morning dehydrated. So if you're not thinking about that as soon as you wake up, especially from an athletic perspective, but also just for like general health and longevity, you should make sure that you're being well hydrated. And I think an electrolyte powder, especially one that doesn't have like the added sugars, it's pretty much just the sodium, potassium, chloride, like the mineral electrolytes, I think can play a tremendous role in athletic performance and extremely beneficial, like I said, for athletes who are training multiple times a day and are, like I said, working out in those really hot and humid environments, or working out where they're it's very intense and they're sweating like a lot. So those are my 3 go-to supplements. You know, there's countless others like multivitamins. For the most part, I tell people, hey, I'd rather you take like a greens powder or kind of just up your fruits and vegetables rather than taking a multivitamin. I don't think they haven't been shown to be as effective unless someone has like a severe nutrient deficiency and it's recommended by your doctor. Other ones, like we talked about, pre-workout. So, you know, pre-workout, because of the caffeine levels, again, there are things in pre-workout that will help your sports performance, but there's also negative effects too. So high levels of caffeine can cause higher rates of blood pressure. It can cause your heart rate to go up, which isn't necessarily the worst thing. But if you are doing a sport where, like, my whole job in swimming was to keep my heart rate low while I was swimming so I could swim for a longer period of time. Like, me being a distance swimmer, pre-workout would not have been a great option for me. Someone like a sprinter or something like that, having that quick burst of energy might be helpful, right? So these are like nitpicky cases, you know, but I think for the most part, especially for athletes who should be prioritizing sleep, right? And I think that's a huge thing as well. If you're taking a pre-workout with a shit ton of caffeine right before, like at 5 or 6 p.m., that's going to impact your sleep as you're going to bed at night. So always, you know, weigh the pros and cons for these different kinds of, you know, supplements. And, you know, that should depend, like, that should help you understand when you should be taking it, why you should be taking it. And again, that's where working with someone like you or me to kind of give that advice comes into play. But do your research on the different kinds of supplements that are out there. Some are helpful for sports performance. A lot of them, you know, you can be getting a bunch of BS in there too with the proprietary blends. You're not really getting what you're saying. So I think pre-workouts in particular are one of those things I'm super scrutinous on, is because, like, they're a very unique sports supplement in the sense that there's so many different products, there's so many different ingredients that can be in a pre-workout powder. There's so much like BS that happens in the supplement industry as a whole. So I just want to make sure if we're talking from a sports perspective, there's also a lot of banned substances that can theoretically be in these types of things that might pop you, you know, if you are at the level competing under like a sanctioned organization like a WADA, USADA, stuff like that. So yeah. again, if anyone has specific supplement questions, I encourage you to reach out to me or Gary. He could relay the information, but via my website or anything like that. But I think those are the main ones that I think are the most effective and, pretty generic stuff. And I think that's the whole point, right? None of these supplements are magical pills that are going to take you to the next level unless you're putting in the work and you're also, prioritizing everything else that we talked about, like the nutrition, the hydration, the sleep, the recovery. Maximize those things first before you hop on the supplement bandwagon.
You said pretty much what I would have expected and was hoping, brother. The simple things, the common sense things seem to be the way. When we were younger, you get caught up in the other things, especially me with the pre-workout. I got to a point where I was taking 3 or 4 scoops at a time and just without any outside study, I just common sensely thought, well, this might not be the best situation. And that's when a shift to black coffee actually came into play. But yes, that was
also at that. It's like I remember my first time taking pre-workout, right? Like I only knew what to take because of what my buddy recommended to me. Like that's a huge thing, and I think, and I'm gonna try and get some more stuff out on my Instagram channel. But most people look at a pre-workout label and maybe they know the word caffeine, but there's like 14 different active ingredients in a pre-workout these days. So do you really know what that means? And do you really know what these ingredients are doing? And I
Can you
don't think
pronounce it?
exactly.
That's the other
And I
thing.
just think there's a lot of information like out there right now about that kind of stuff. So that's something that, one of my goals is to get a lot more information out there. But, you should always know what you're putting in your body, and you should know like the purpose of what it's supposed to do. And you also want to know if what you're spending your money on this stuff. So, if you're buying a product that doesn't even have like efficacious dosage levels, so like even though it says it's going to have X, Y, and Z benefits, it's not even dosed correctly to give you those benefits, then you're just pissing away your money, and it's not like an effective tool. So again, sounds like I'm hard on pre-workouts. I think they're effective, but you got to make sure you're buying from a reputable company. And it's gotten a lot better. It's not, the supplement industry is not really like the Wild West like it used to be. Like there's a lot of third-party testing. There's more regulation by the FDA and stuff like that. But it still isn't something that's heavily regulated, and there's a lot of sketchy companies. There's a lot of BS products that hit like one-hit wonders, right? There's tons of companies that's come out with a pre-workout and they're gone like the next year because it turns out that it was causing cardiac arrest or stuff like that, right? So you probably remember like the Jack 3D one that had something like
I took it.
yes, I think it had like DMMA, dimethylamylamine, which was like shown, to have like links to like cardiac arrest and crap like that. So again, there's always that, like, that's again why I play into that simple approach. There's always stuff that's going to come out that's going to be like the new hot thing, but guess what? It's probably something that hasn't been studied. It's probably something where, it's so new that you really don't know the effects 5-10 years down the road or anything like that. So keep it simple, stick to the basics, prioritize, like, again, the basics in the nutrition aspect, but also, the working out aspect, right? You don't need the craziest kettlebell workout. You don't need the only Olympic lifting workout or anything like that. Like take it's great to try all those different things, but find the thing that works for you and like your lifestyle as a whole, right? At this point, we're playing like like me and you, right? We're playing the longevity game. We want to stay active. We want to stay athletic. We want to live a long time, so we're prioritizing a healthy diet, all that kind of stuff. There's different phases of life, and I think, when you are younger, when you're high school, college, after college, you're pursuing a sport as a full-time thing. That's the time maybe you can maximize some of these other things. But yeah, like I said, I think what it always comes down to and what we really try and preach is there's a time in life for everything, and everything revolves around your goals, whether that's short-term goals, long-term goals. But you have to, and I think that's why it's so important, like you have to fully flesh out where you want to take your fitness or your, whatever it is. Like once you have your goal, then you can build everything else behind that and figure out what makes sense for your life, for your routine.
You have to find the practice that enables you to be the most consistent.
Yeah, consistency. Committed consistency.
That's right. I mean, it's a big part of it. It's part of why that name is what it is. But that goes along with the simple things, that goes along with what's sustainable for you, all that. But what can you continuously do time and time again for the next months, years, decades, whatever that may be, until you're back into the ground. That's it.
Definitely. Cool.
Cool.
So I think we hit on like some really key stuff today. I think this was one of, it's me saying this, but I think this is one of our best ones yet. So, our goal is to keep improving on here. Like we always say, if you guys do have any specific questions, we'd love for you guys to hit us up in the comments, anything like that. We might look at getting something together as far as a website eventually or something like that, but you can find me at Nastasi.nutrition on Instagram, and you can find Gary at Gary C. Gall. So yeah, we should have a lot of good new stuff coming out pretty soon. Expect, again, one of these about once a month, and yeah, let us know in the comments, or find a way to message us if you do have any specific questions.
Please do. That'll only make it better for us, and we can relate more to you. But it's been fantastic so far, and I do agree. I think this was a great one in our young era of podcasts.
So we're coming at you. This is episode 3 of the Intake and Output podcast, and we'll see you next month with number 4.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Sounds good. See ya.